has reached the #1 rank in Amazon's bestseller charts, both here in the US and in the United Kingdom. He presents live and web streaming spiritual events, workshops and trainings, and makes regular radio and TV appearances, including Guyana TV in the United Kingdom and the US. Originally from New Zealand, he left his home country in 1987 and traveled widely before settling down in London, where in 2002 he established the Center for Conscious Ascension with Dr. Almira Ariel-Haller. The work that he does at the center serves as a vehicle for accelerating the ascension process, which offers powerfully transformative trainings, workshops, and individual sessions to assist people in clearing deep core issues that block them from reaching their lives' fullest potential. So please kindly join me to welcome Dr. Yan here today.
Okay, thank you. We thought there were only going to be 9 of you earlier today, and we came in the store, and they told us there might be 30, so I had it in my mind. It was a small, intimate gathering, but this will be good too. So welcome to your soul contract, Decoded. So I'm going to share with you tonight how to decode the spiritual map of your life, which is hidden in your birth name. So, how many of you have the feeling there's something special you're here to do and someone hasn't quite told you what that is? Put your hands up. Well, you're in the right place because you're going to find out what that is tonight. Well, as best we can. So, in 1990, I came to the States for the first time from New Zealand, and I walked into a hotel room in Phoenix, Arizona. And my teacher, Frank Alper, who's now passed, who channeled through this work in the 80s, it was called The Spiritual Numerology of Moses then. He took out a Star of David, and he asked me for my birth certificate name. Then he decoded it on that Star of David using ancient Hebrew sounds to match the sounds of my name or my Chinese name in phonetic English. And he spent that hour explaining my entire life. So I went from feeling completely lost and confused, didn't know why my life was doing what it was doing, to standing here 25 years later, because everything he said in that reading has come true about becoming a writer, an author, and a teacher. So I'm here tonight to share that with you so that you can find out a little bit about your own lives. And the reason we ask for your birth certificate name is because Barbara is going to generate your charts and email it to you. So then, and we'll send you the video of this event and an audio, so then you understand what your chart is about. But we also have the book, which will decode the chart you'll receive as well. Okay, so there's 3 parts to this evening. I'm going to talk a bit about how the system works. Kathleen has kindly volunteered to bare her soul, and we're going to give her a reading live. And then I'm going to talk about what each of the 22 numbers mean, so that when you, some of you have got your charts already, but when you receive your chart, you actually learn about what your life is about. Okay? So I'd like to connect us all together with a little meditation first to create one unified consciousness. And we're going to do what's called the unified chakra meditation. So you need to put everything down and have your feet flat on the floor, shoes off if you can to stay grounded. And this group consciousness that we'll create will actually guide me in what I say tonight. Okay, so just close your eyes, and when we breathe through our mouths. So I'd like you to begin to breathe the ultraviolet light of your soul into the center of your heart and create a glowing ball of light. Breathe the ultraviolet light of the soul into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the throat chakra and the solar plexus, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the brow chakra and the navel chakra, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the crown chakra and the base chakra, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. Breathe your awareness into the center of the heart and expand and encompass the astral, causal, and electromagnetic bodies, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the alpha chakra, which is one of your hand lengths above your crown chakra and slightly forward, and the omega chakra, one hand length below the base of your spine, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. And allow what we call the waves of Metatron. These are magnetic, electric, and gravitational waves to vibrate between the alpha and the omega chakras and to merge with the astral, causal, and electromagnetic bodies to create the kingdom. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the eighth chakra, about one hand length, directly above your head and your upper thighs, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. And allow the emotional body to merge with your physical fields. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the ninth chakra, about 2 hand lengths above your head and your lower thighs, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. And allow the mental body to merge with the physical fields. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the 10th chakra, about 3 hand lengths above your head and your knees, forming one unified field of light within, through, and around your body. And allow the spiritual body to merge with the physical fields to create the throne. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the 11th chakra way above your head and your upper calves, forming one unified field of light within, through and around your body, and allow the Oversoul to merge with the throne. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the 12th chakra even further above your head and your lower calves, forming one unified field of light within, through and around your body, and allow the Christ Oversoul to merge with the throne. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the 13th chakra way above your head and your feet, forming one unified field of light within, through and around your body, and allow the I Am Oversoul to merge with the throne. Breathe your awareness into the center of your heart and expand and encompass the 14th chakra way above your head to way below your feet, forming one unified field of light within, through and around your body, and allow Source to merge with the throne. And allow the highest frequencies of your spirit to emerge from the throne 3 hand lengths above your head and to descend into your crown chakra, into your heart chakra, and radiate outwards in all directions into the kingdom. And send a stream of this brilliant ultraviolet light to the heart of everyone else in this room to create one group consciousness. It's what we call a synergistic entity. This consciousness will guide us through this evening. Do this now with an out breath. Just feel this consciousness form, surrender to its flow. And when you're ready, take a few deep breaths and open your eyes. Okay. Everyone back? Feel a bit more centered? So you had a little taste of unity consciousness of where we are, have a feeling that we're one with everything, which is where the peace comes from. And we unified from here in the 3rd dimension, up through the higher dimensions, all the way back to Source. And so the idea here is to reconnect to the other parts of you that you don't normally access, so that you go from feeling that perhaps you're a small human being stuck in this body on the earth plane to accessing much more of who you truly are. What's the problem? What's the problem?
That's okay, keep going.
And so who you are in this body is just a tiny part of who you are. And when we leave Source from over here, when we leave where we truly come from, which is pure consciousness, we forget who we are. And the idea of this work is to learn who we truly are. Okay? So what happens is that, how many of you are parents? I mean, how many of you just had a few names you could have called your children? It's like 2 or 3 variations. Well, this happens because here, in what we call the 5th dimension, this is the 3rd dimension, the earth plane where we are. This is the astral plane where you go, in the Hollywood movies, you got the tunnel of light, you go to the astral plane. And this is the 5th dimension where you had a sense just now, some of you, that you felt unified with everything. We ultimately come from source, from pure consciousness, and an out-breath of all that is, of great spirit. And at this point in the 5th dimension, we individuate into a separate consciousness. This is our soul without a physical body. And at some point during that experience, we choose to have embodied human experience. How many of you have been asking, well, why did I come here? It's been really tough. It's been really challenging. Well, the reason you come is because when you densify pure consciousness in a physical body, the emotional intensity, which we all have in all sorts of different ways, is the fastest way that we can grow. We learn much faster in a body. And so, how many of you are familiar with the law of attraction? And how many of you didn't get the Ferrari, as in The Secret? Okay? Well, the reason you didn't get it is because you hadn't programmed it in. Okay? And so what you do up here is and how many of you are okay with the idea of past lives? Okay, so this is you, say now, and this is your previous life 50 years ago. So each lifetime you create a new personality expression. So you are brand new each lifetime. You might have 3 different expressions here, but your soul is eternal. So your soul chooses a personality expression, and it creates that. And it creates that by choosing a name, which is the point of this work, which through the law of attraction, it programs into your physical body, into your DNA, into your, what we call Karmic Matrix. It's pretty no coincidence. It's sort of linked to the idea of the movie The Matrix. Because this is the Matrix, except there are no machines. Okay? And the Karmic Matrix is a grey cobweb-like energy that's in your physical and energetic bodies, and it's programmed with the vibrations of your name. And by the law of attraction, they create every moment of your life. And if you understand what that core source program is, then you can actually get on with your life and things can start to flow a little better, which is what this work is about. So you choose 2 or 3 names, which is to give your parents the illusion that they have some choice, some free will choice, and hopefully they pick one of them. 99% of the time, they get it right. And this name is emanating from you from the time you were born, or even before you were born. And so, this name creates your conscious personality. It creates every moment of your life. And that's your birth certificate name. Okay, so we tend to be very casual about names in the West, but even if you change your name, you change your life. So in understanding your birth certificate name, you can work out where your soul wants to take you. And if you understand where it's taking you and you align with that, life opens and flows. Okay, so how many of you feel you've had a really rough life? Yeah, and this is because we tend to turn away from the natural flow of our soul. Okay, so let's find out, how do we actually interpret what our name means? So we use this ancient symbol, the Star of David. And so this is really a gateway of consciousness. And you have to have certain programs built in within this structure. It's in your energy fields before you can come to the earth plane. So it has 2 large triangles. We have a large downward pointing physical triangle, and this represents the physical side of life. You have to form like an interface with the physical reality. You have to learn to walk and talk, get conditioned responses. You have to arrive here. Relationships, careers, kids, houses. How many of you had the midlife crisis between about 35 and 42? Or earlier? Okay, midlife or spiritual awakening, where you may have felt that you look at your life, your job, relationship feeling, this doesn't actually really cut the mustard, this just doesn't do it. There's got to be more to it. How many of you had that and you go and search for it and you want to find that there's something much more and you're going to find it no matter what? Well, that's when this large spiritual triangle here activates, and that's your soul saying, okay, you set a good foundation, so let's get on with the real meaning of why we're here. And so the spiritual mission activates. And the idea here is that this is going to be grounded by the physical triangle, provided you've worked through enough of those issues there. And so within each of these large triangles, these three aspects, we have karma, talents, and goals. So karma, cause and effect, but actually what it really is a set of unresolved past life issues that you bring in this lifetime to create the negative context for this life. So have you noticed it, and when you're younger, you get everything you don't like in life, and then you get very clear what you do want, and your soul programs this in deliberately. So if you didn't have everything you didn't like initially, you wouldn't focus on what you do want. So for example, how many of you have felt very disempowered in life? Disempowered. Yeah. And so we often program in disempowerment, so we get clear, well, I don't like being victimized or abused in whatever form. I want to come back into my power somehow. And so this triggers us down the pathway our soul wants us to go. So within our karma, we have the biggest challenges, which most people in life turn away from, which is why life gets harder. Have you noticed how spiritual people tend to look younger? People who've worked on themselves emotionally, they look younger. It's because they're not carrying all the karmic programming, and those who don't get old a lot quicker. And life can become very bitter because the karmic load's still basically torturing them. So the idea of the physical karma is to engage with, say, the disempowerment. I had a lot of that when I was a child. And then to transmute that shadow energy into the gift of empowerment, to create the opposite out of it. And so, for those of you who are searching for the real meaning, look at your greatest challenges, because within that lies your greatest gifts. And you overcome this karma by activating the latent physical talents, and the energy flows into that. And if it's a good match in terms of consciousness, the quality of the energy, and the power, it will transmute that and the gifts will emerge. The talents will get stronger, then that will help you achieve the physical goals. And this is what gets you out of bed in the morning, what excites you about life, in the physical world, in the outer-facing world. And when the spiritual triangle, which runs at the same time, but with less emphasis when you're younger, but as you get older and awaken spiritually, it gets stronger, the spiritual karma contains your spiritual gift, which you'll deliver to the world. It's how you open to higher consciousness if you work through the karmic challenge and transmute it. That's why people say, I wouldn't want to be younger again, maybe a younger body, but I'd like to have the emotional experience of older age. It's because you know what's going on. And so latent spiritual talents are used to overcome spiritual karma. The gifts come online. This gets stronger. The spiritual talents, that helps you move to the spiritual goals. And if you work through all these 6 aspects consciously, which is what this work is about, you achieve the soul destiny, life purpose, divine purpose, whatever you want to call it, that thing that we all seek within us. From a very young age, I felt no one's telling the truth down here, and they're not doing their best. Something's badly gone wrong with the world. That's what I used to think. Okay, it's a little better now, but still got a way to go. So, and this is the reason you didn't get the answer to that question, or why am I really here, is because you hadn't worked through the 6 outer aspects of the chart. And so you get pieces of your mission, pieces of the reason for being here, the more clearer you get emotionally by working through the soul contract, and the more you open to the higher consciousness, especially by working through the spiritual karma here. So I'll say a little bit more about what these mean. So I'll explain the difference between karma, talents and goals. Karma means a negative expression. It's not a bad expression, it's just the lessons that you're here to go through. So we call it a negative expression, the challenges. So there are 22 numbers of Hebrew that we use in the system, 22 sounds of Hebrew, which is one of the sacred languages, and it comes out of the movement of Great Spirit. How many of you are familiar with the Flower of Life work by Drumbelow Melchizedek? Where he talks about the flower of life, and he talks about how Hebrew comes out of the flower of life. So it's a movement of Great Spirit, it's pure consciousness. This is why the system is very powerful. And so each frequency of the 22 numbers we use, either in a negative expression or a positive expression. And in talents, if you bring it online, it's mostly positive, but you've got to work through some negative stuff first to get to it. And if it's in goals, there's maybe 30, 40% of it is a negative expression, then you come into the positive. Just so it's clear when we talk about Kathleen's chart in a little while, and you look at your own. All right? And so, what happens here in life, this is time going along the bottom, this is intensity up the left-hand side of the chart, is that initially you are mainly involved with the physical. I mean, you've just been born and you're in this baby's body that can't do much, and so it's very physical. And you work through the physical issues of life and you master them, and so the intensity of this gets less over time. The spiritual side is just starting to happen down here and it rises over time. And when you cross over to this point, that's when you awaken spiritually. And that's usually between 35 and 42, but it's moving a lot younger now because the spiritual awakening is accelerated. So this is actually what we're doing. You're trying to work your way through all this here as consciously as possible. And so if you are following where your soul wants to take you with the soul contract, life opens and flows. If you're not following it, it gets very stuck because we're not following what we call the spiritual signature. How many of you make decisions based on the heart? If your heart opens and you follow it, you notice how it sort of works. But if you think about it too much, if you go too mental, you notice how it doesn't work, it becomes really hard. Well, the heart is the gateway to the soul. It's actually using your physical sensations and emotions and feelings to guide you. And so that's key to this work. All right? So, how many of you are familiar with the stupa? Okay, this is sort of more a metaphor for growth. So for each of those 7 aspects that I showed on the contract, you have a stupa here. And you start at the bottom. This vertical axis is alignment with the flow of the open heart of spirit. You come along here, and you're going around the stupa, and then an issue happens. It could be feeling unworthy to be loved. It happens as a child. Your mother might have ignored you very briefly, and then your inner child went, "Ooh, I'm not loved. I'm not worthy of being loved," and that program got triggered. You come around here, it triggers again at school, might trigger at work or relationships. But that's why stuff keeps repeating. And how many of you had stuff that repeats and you thought you cleared it, but it happens again, you thought, I wasted my money with that therapist, it didn't work. But actually it's not the case. What's actually happening is that you're going to deeper and finer levels of the program. Okay? So it means you're just going around this, and eventually, if you keep going to the top, you'll clear the program. And you would have mastered that aspect. And once you do that, you're totally at the positive energy of that particular aspect. And so our life is about climbing up these things. Okay? And the journey is never linear. The mind thinks it's linear. If we do A, we'll get to B to C. Life is very random. I mean, if you think about how you thought your life would be 20 years ago, it probably hasn't turned out that way, has it? It's because you're going up one of these things. All right? So, the idea here is to move from, this is the most important diagram here, is to move from following the path of the ego, which is the path of the mind, the path of suffering, which is what the Buddha was talking about thousands of years ago, to moving to following the spiritual signature of your open heart, what we call the path of bliss. And what happens is that as you awaken spiritually, we went from the little ego here, which thinks it knows what it's doing, but you realize as you get older it doesn't got a clue, okay, to this expanded consciousness with a unified chakra. And if you stay in that state of consciousness, if you do that meditation every morning, you'll have a different day altogether. Because this higher consciousness, this vastness of spirit, will guide you to follow this. And your mind, hopefully, will quieten down. And so, initially, we converge on the spiritual signature. Our mind takes over, we diverge, but we actually converge eventually over time, and that's why life flows. Life gets easier. And so if you know what your soul contract contains and what it's creating, you can start to do this. And you start to do this, your dreams start to happen. I spent 15 years before being able to do this, barely making a living because I was doing that. And I spent 15 years learning how to move from this to this, which is what I want to share with you today. Okay, so now I'm lucky I can travel around and talk about this sort of thing. It didn't used to be like that though. So, what you're doing is that we're moving up the scale of consciousness here, on the left. How many of you are familiar with David Hawkins and the book Power versus Force? Okay, so for those of you who aren't, David Hawkins muscle tested with kinesiology the different states of human consciousness which are on the left. This is a logarithmic scale. 20 is about the lowest frequency you can have in your body. It's shame. 1,000 is Christ. Most people are on average above 200, the level of integrity where people will do what they'll say they do. Unconditional love is 540. Truth is 600. This work is about truth, which is why it has such a strong effect. And so when you follow the flow of your heart, you open more and more, you move up the scale. And the more you move up the scale, the more you raise the consciousness of those around you. So there are about 1 to 2% of the world's population are service souls or light workers, which is about 70 to 140 million people. And we are the reason the place hasn't torn itself apart, because as we move up the scale, you have an exponential effect on neutralizing the negativity of everyone else who's trying to destroy the place. Okay, so your own personal process of awakening, the more you align with where your soul wants to take you, the more we improve this place. And that's just working on yourself. If you go out and be a therapist or a teacher or a facilitator, then you have an even greater effect. So the more alignment you can achieve and the more clarity you can have, it's better for everyone. Okay? So I want to show you how this actually works now. So Kathleen, you're on. So we just have to rearrange things here a little bit. I just have to move this. I have to get Kathleen's chart up. Why don't you have a seat just there with the microphone? Just bear with me a minute. I'm trying to get the mouse back here. Okay. To find Kathleen's chart. Yeah. I think I just need to adjust the settings because just bear with me. Okay, there you go. So I just have to rearrange this a little bit so that just move this out of the way. Okay. Okay, turn this on. you want to test that? Just.
Is it on?
Check.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Okay. So, Kathleen, what's the answer to that question I asked you earlier? What do you really want to know about your life?
Something about relationships at this stage.
Have to go a bit closer.
Oh, something about relationships.
Can you be a bit more specific?
Love.
What's happened?
Love connection.
Yeah, what's actually happened?
I was in a relationship for 18 years,
Yeah.
and it's kind of blowing up, blowing sky high. Recently, I've been working with Barbara and doing a lot of work every 2 weeks, and everything has just like blown sky high, like a volcano.
Okay, we'll see what we can do with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll show you how we generated Kathleen's chart. So what we did is we took Kathleen's name up here and we converted it to the equivalent Hebrew sounds here. So we used 22 Hebrew sounds, okay? And in Hebrew, numbers and letters have the same sound and same energy. It's unlike Pythagorean numerology, which some of you may be used to, where you allocate numbers to the Roman alphabet. It just purely comes out of the sound of Hebrew. So the numbers here represent just labels in English for Hebrew frequencies. So you need to let go anything you know about other systems because you can't interpret it in the same way. And so we take the numbers which come here and we start allocating them in a clockwise expanding spiral. Like the 19 goes here, the 1 goes here, and we go around the Star of David till we use them all up. And then what we do is we add them up. So in physical karma, they equal a total of 38. And because we only have 22 numbers and 22 interpretations which were channeled from the soul of Moses by Frank Alpa, we need to reduce it to a number between 1 and 22 to make some sort of sense. So we go 3 plus 8 becomes 11. So 11 is between 1 and 22, so it has some meaning. And then that becomes the left-hand aspect here. And then what we do is we must find out what the right-hand aspect is. So we go 1 plus 1 is 2. So we have an 11 and a 2. So we have a pure 11 in Kathleen's karmic position, so it's a negative expression. We have pure 2. So in Kathleen's lifetime, she's going to experience pure 11, pure 2, plus all the blends in between. So there's a wider range of expression. In the case of physical talents here, the total is 41. 4 plus 1 becomes 5. 5 plus nothing, because there's nothing else to add to that, becomes another 5. So we get what's called a double number. So it means that in this part of Kathleen's life, she can only do something very specific in the energies of 5. There's not a wider range of expression. That's why some of you may feel that you've got a wide range in some parts of your life and other parts are very rigid, and there's nothing you can do about it. You may desire some things which can't happen because the chart's limiting you, but other parts give you more room to maneuver. So we work out all the numbers like that, all right, and then just move down a bit. So we had to sit both of us together for the lighting, okay? So I can zoom that up a little bit. Yeah. Actually, first off, so what we did is we took, to work out her life, her soul destiny, or her reason for being here, she took the physical numbers, the 11, 2, 5, 5, 9, 9, and put them on the bottom table. The spiritual numbers, the 15, 6, 4, 4, and 17, 8, and put them on the bottom half of the table. And I'll zoom it up now, a bit more. And then we summed them up. We added this column up to get the 61, this one to get the 34, 6 plus 1 is 7, 3 plus 4 is 7, and that goes in the middle of the chart, and that's her soul destiny. So that's the meaning of her life. So if Kathleen works through all the other 6 outer aspects, then her life purpose or soul destiny will happen. And all the little squiggly symbols you see are channel symbols. What they actually do is that they act like antenna or portals for me to guide me in what I'm going to say. And they'll talk to you. For those of you who are very sensitive, when you get your charts, you'll look at them and you'll start to feel energy, feel things about them. They have very specific meaning. All right, so in physical karma, Kathleen has an 11 too. So, Kathleen, have you felt lost a lot in life, especially when you were younger?
Yeah.
Yeah. How old are you now, can I ask?
60.
Yeah. So, do you feel a bit more, you've got a bit more structure now in life on how it works? Yeah.
Sure do, yeah.
So the 11-2 is basically learning about building a structure of truth in life. So initially you have no structure, which is why you feel lost, and you can become dependent on people. Does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And the 2 is about learning emotional resiliency, because it's a little spring that moves up and down, to be able to cope with the shocks of life. So were you quite sensitive?
Yes.
Were you sensitive to shock when you were younger, and you sort of went into sort of freeze at times when things happened?
I had depression quite a bit of my life, so I was very sensitive, and in the family I had to kind of withdraw because there was like too much going on. It was like hyper-stimulated, so I would like read or sleep or something to stay away from people.
Yeah, so the 2 leads to the depression because it's about emotional movement up and down. So, and the 11 can malabsorb lots of the family's emotional garbage.
Yeah.
Do you process their stuff?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you been clearing that out? Sounds like you've been clearing that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feeling better?
I'm writing a book. It's
Yeah.
an autobiographical fiction, so I'm going through, and it's totally inspired. So it's like the first time in my life I can really write it. It's come now to this point. It needs to be written.
Yeah.
So it's a very good
Yeah. So you're putting some structure
tool.
to what's been going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're learning, Kathleen's learning here, is to learn to clear out all the stuff which is not hers and to discern what is her truth and build her own unique structure of truth and become emotionally resilient to take it out to the world. In physical talent, she's got these double 5s, and that's a symbol of, well, what does that look like? Anyone want to volunteer what that symbol looks like? Whatever comes to you. Yeah, it's sort of like a fetus or a swan or something abstract. Okay? And so that's all about speaking the truth. So did you get in trouble for speaking the truth as a child?
Yeah.
Yeah. They try and stop you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kathleen's talent here is to speak the truth no matter what. You've got a very good truth smell, good nose for the truth. You know when someone's not telling the truth, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a very sensitive energy, very psychic energy. And Kathleen probably has to use her intuition to function in the world.
Sure.
Yeah. You can't use raw power, it doesn't work.
No.
Yeah. And so this is a very spiritual energy in the physical part of the chart. So Kathleen was really born to be more spiritually orientated. You weren't really born for the rough and tumble of the real physical world.
Yes. Yet I've been in the corporate world, which has
Been tough.
a real clash. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been very hard, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in physical goals, let's see what she's got in there, these 9s. That's a symbol of, what does that remind you of, that symbol, the 9? It's snake, serpent, dragon. Okay, so Kathleen's goal is to become the dragon, to come into power, which is what I was talking about earlier. So I would say here that you've had a lot of challenges to your power when you were younger, especially probably at work and relationships. Is that the case?
Yeah.
What's happened sort of briefly?
My father was extremely domineering.
Yeah.
You know, my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And I was the most rebellious. With 4 kids in the family, I was the most rebellious, so I was really clashing with him.
Yeah, so do you feel you're in your power now? Or getting there?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the strongest number you can have in the chart. So in this case, Kathleen has to learn to claim her power and to trust herself. If you found when you trusted yourself and acted on it, it worked out okay, but if you ask everyone else, it didn't go so well?
Yeah, but it's my manifestation has been making a living. So it's always that struggle. So there seems to be like the need to compromise. So if you really want to go it alone, and there's this fear of not being able to keep a roof over my head, for example, or something like that. So it's a real
fear very much goes with that.
Very primal, situation.
Yeah, there's primal fear with the 9 because it's fear of your own power. It's fear of unleashing that power and perhaps destroying yourself, people around you, the world. There's resistance from past lives because of the misuse of power in previous times.
I misused it, or
the soul with another personality expression. You weren't there at that time, but the fear of misuse of the power, what we call a shadow, comes in this lifetime for you to work through. So it's about learning to overcome.